Next morning, he's got to leave out for his business trip. She's going to stay back a little bit today. He's telling her, if you want to stay a little longer here today, you can. She gives him a long kiss. He leaves. We find out he is going to Lovedale. So, another one of his vineyards has been attacked. The name of this vineyard is Marguerite, and someone poisoned a section of his grapes. So, he thinks it's a woman called Audrey Bagshaw, who he had a relationship with 3 years ago, short term. And she's cutting up, but he has a PI that's on it, and he lets the guy know, listen, if you can get me the address by tonight, I'll throw in an extra grand. Sure enough, he's at the restaurant eating, and the PI calls him. The PI gets him the information, and he was like, boom, you're going to get the extra grand. Well, we find out that she knows his real name. And it's only because she found out after they had, stopped their arrangement. Because remember, prior to this, he only did like a few weeks. She sought out his information and started acting up. Now, I don't know if she's been acting up for the past 3 years, if this is just something she's just starting to do. I would have thought she would have been acting up all this time and not out of the blue. So I guess as we keep reading, we'll find out. But that's the whole thing with her. So he calls her because the PI has given him all the information. He calls her and he tells her to meet him at their place, which is a hotel room. At first, she tries to act like she's not going to come, but she comes. She knows she's going to come. She comes in a, trench coat, stilettos, ready to fuck. He goes, that's not why I called you here. She's like, come on, please. I'm the only one who knows you. I'm the only one who knows how to please you. He told her to stop. I do not want you. He tells her, I have somebody else. And she goes, it's just another person that doesn't know you. And he tells her he knows she's the one that started the fire at the Chalice Vineyard. He knows she's the one that poisoned the grapes at the Marguerite Vineyard. And he basically let her know, you better cut the shit out. She never denied that she was doing this stuff. So clearly it's her. But as she was walking out, she did threaten him. And she said, you're going to regret doing this to me. And he's like, I already do. And he walked out. So he goes back to the vineyard. I want to say he drives all the way back to the Avalon Vineyard. And he gets back, takes a shower, and he has a message from Laurel Lynn. And he called her back, and she was like, I just wanted to let you know that I got my period. Because he had wanted to know when she got it. He had told her, like, even if I'm away, call and let me know. And he kind of was like surprised at how he wasn't even that concerned with it. So they have a little back and forth conversation. He asked her what she's going to be doing for New Year's. Um, they're supposed to be going to a club, all of them, Ben, Zach, Addison, and her. It's New Year's Eve. She's getting ready, and Addison is like talking about all the stuff that she wants to do to Zach. It only bothers her a little because she wishes she could do this stuff to Lachlan, right? So she's gonna try and get out of this bathroom with Addison because she's like, sick of hearing all this stuff. So she has her towel wrapped around her. She checked to make sure the coast was clear so she could run back to her room, and she runs smack dab into Ben. So she goes, "Excuse me," and like gets away from him. But see, that's a problem to me because that means he was watching. I don't think that was a coincidence. I think he was watching to make sure she would run into him. But anyway, they get dressed. They, of course, when they come out, Zach is just goo goo gaga over Addison, and Ben's looking at old girl, and Laurel Lynn, she ain't saying nothing to him. So they call the cab. She gets in the front seat, so she doesn't have to sit next to Ben. When they're walking in the club, he opens the door for her and he's like, "You really do look amazing." And then Laura Lynn says, "You look great too. You won't have a problem getting any girls tonight, getting their attention." And he says, "Except for the one I want." And I just feel like he's going to be a problem. I really do. But anyway, they get inside. They both sign up, Addison and Laura Lynn, to sing later. It's a long list because it is New Year's Eve. Addison goes first, and then Laura Lynn goes, but she plays on the piano this time. And she sings Private Dancer, kind of like an inside joke because of, the dance that she gave to Lachlan. And so then afterwards, she gets a text like a couple minutes before New Year's, and it says something like, "I want you to shimmy for me again." Well, she knows he's here now because that was one of the lyrics in the song. And so sure enough, he comes up behind her. He was like, "I wasn't going to let anybody else kiss you on New Year's Eve." And so they kiss, and then he tells her to come back um, to his place. He drives her back to the apartment she's staying in, and he's waiting for her outside while she packs. But soon after, Ben comes home and he looks drunk, but he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna stay where I am because if I go up there, it's not gonna be a good encounter, right?" But then he felt like something was off. So he winds up going to hit the buzzer. And when Laura Lynn answers, she's like, "I'll be down in just a minute." And then he hears a drunken Ben say something to her in the background, but he can't make out what it is. So he buzzes back and yells for Laura Lynn to open the door now. So she opens it up. He gets up there. He can tell she's been crying. He says, "What's wrong? What did he do?" She won't say. She's like, "I just want to get out of here. I just want to get out of here." They get downstairs. Same thing. She's just, "Please get me away from here." So he realizes she's not going to tell him anything right now. And clearly, if he finds out right now, he's going to run back upstairs, right? So they drive, and eventually she tells him what happened. So while she was packing, Ben comes and tells her, like, "Don't go with him. Um, like, give me a chance." And he kisses her and she pushes him away. And he tells her he doesn't think of you as anything, he just thinks of you as a whore. Well, rage is what our boy felt, Lachlan, right? He's ready to kill Ben. And he realizes that's why she didn't say anything, because if he was any closer, he was going to go back and do something. So he tells her, "You are not staying there anymore." And she's like, "That's not possible. I have to." He says, "No, you don't. I'll get you your own apartment." He says, "Better yet, you can just stay with me at the vineyard. But you're not going back. You are not going back there. It's not happening." And he also told her, hell, Addison isn't there most of the time anyway. And let's be honest, if you go back and something else happens, your friendship, it might not survive it. And that's a real statement, because you got to think that's her brother. You know, I don't see her taking your side and not her brother's. And so she goes, "Well, what about when you go on business trips?" He's like, "You can come with me sometimes too, or you can stay at the vineyard. There's a housekeeper there, Miss Porcelli. She'll be happy to have company. Daniel can take you wherever you need to go." And eventually she's just like, "You know what? Okay." He made a lot of good points, and she really don't want to go back there anyway. And so she agrees. And I really do feel like he kissed her this time, right? He's been brushing up against, remember he was brushing up against her, doing stuff, um saying to her, like, "The person's attention I want, I can't get it." Like, then he forces a kiss on you. What do you think is next? Next is not going to be anything good, because this person can't accept that you don't want them. She winds up falling asleep. Um, and so he carries her inside the vineyard to the bed, and he gets one of his shirts so she can put that on, takes her clothes off and stuff so she can be comfortable. And he had told her, I forgot to mention in the car, he's like, "You're not a nobody, you know? That's not who and what you are. Like, that's not what this is." And clearly, because he knew what the dude was saying was playing on an old wound, you know? He doesn't know what the wound necessarily is, but he knew it was an old wound that it, kind of reactivated almost, right? And he feels like, let me say it right, he feels like he should say to her, you'll find someone that will love you and will give you the children you want and all this type of stuff, but he can't find himself. He can't bring himself to say it to her, because then that means he's not in her life. So again, everything sounded great when he put up the boundaries, right? It sounds great. But when a person has an effect on you like that, it changes things. And he is clearly seeing that. Next morning, Laura Lynn wakes up. She sees a text message from Addison asking if she was staying at Lachlan's. And he's nowhere. He's not in the room anywhere. So she figures, you know what? Let me just go ahead. Let me talk to her. Let me get it over with. So she calls her, tells her what happened, lets her know she's not going to be staying there anymore. And Addison's response was, he was really drunk last night. I'm sure he regrets it this morning. I am not shocked. That is her brother. I don't think she can think that her brother is capable of certain things. It's going to be very difficult for her to believe that. And so for her, she's going to chalk it up to him being drunk. Remember, I always say when you're drunk, that just brings out what you really want. But that's what she's going to chalk it up to. And it kind of hurt Laura Lynn because it was like, this is her best friend. But again, that is her brother, baby. You're never going to trump that. Sorry, but you're not. But it made her know the right decision is not to go back. Let's be honest. If I'm your girl, your homegirl, we're best friends, we go out of the country together, and when you meet someone, you basically just are all in their face. That's it. You know what I mean? Thank goodness Laura Lynn met someone else. Otherwise, she just would have been up Shit's Creek. Because Addison is all about Zach. That's it. That's all she cares about. So then Laura Lynn tells her, in a few days she'll be back to get her stuff. That's that. So then she goes in the kitchen and she has on that t-shirt that like barely covers her underwear. And Miss Porcelli pops up and it freaks her out because she had thought it was going to be Lachlan. But she's a sweet older woman. And she's like, what would you like for breakfast? I can make you an omelet. And she feels awkward accepting this. And she's like, let me just go, but she accepts it because she doesn't want to be rude either. So she's like, let me just go, I'll be right back. So when she goes in the room, she gets sneaked up on by Lachlan. They wind up having a quick hard fuck. And then he tells her, um, while she's eating her breakfast, he's going to go outside, check on some stuff. And then they'll have the rest of the day together. They can do whatever. So she wants to swim and hang out by the pool. And he said, cool. Lachlan leaves, and then she goes back in with Mrs. Porcelli to eat her omelet. And they were having a little conversation. And she was about to say something about him. And then she just kind of said, well, what do you call him? Since that's her boss. And she says, oh, I call him Mr. McLaughlin. And she goes, oh, so he gave her a fake name. You know, it's a little bit of his real name in there, but he didn't give her like his first, a part of, well, she doesn't know it yet, right? She just knows it's like, okay, he gave me like, now she knows it's kind of like a part of his last name, but she doesn't know his first name. So she feels just a little bit some way about it, but not too much, because again, she gave him a different name, but she also doesn't want to tell him she knows his real name now. Like, she's going to keep calling him Lachlan. She's not going to change it. Even though he knows she's Laurel Lynn now. But she's like, nah, we're going to leave it the way it is. And I also forgot to mention, when they were in the room, she was really concerned with Miss Porcelli seeing her. It was kind of like, oh my gosh, she's going to think I'm number 13. Because he had said he'd done this 12 times before, these short relationships. And he goes, she's probably just going to think that you're my girlfriend because I've never brought anyone here. I've always taken them to hotels. So again, a lot of these things say a lot about how he is, but I do like that she's not getting herself worked up and thinking, oh, I'm different. He does feel something different. She is very much staying on that path of, okay, we're still just going to enjoy ourselves. It's still just for 3 months, and that's it. And I like that, because sometimes you lose focus of that and you get yourself messed up. So, good for her. They're outside by the pool. They get in. They're having a nice time. And then Miss Porcelli brings out some lunch for them. And then, what's her name? Laurel Lynn, like, threw some water in his face. And he was like, oh, you're going to pay for that. Well, he was getting ready to dunk her in the pool. So he had his arms around, like, gripping her. And a scream of hysteria came out of her, and she screamed, please don't do that, please don't do that. So he let her go immediately, and she got out of the pool. She kept trying, she's like, I'm okay. He says to her, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to upset you. She still doesn't say anything. And then he says, Mrs. Porcelli is going to think you don't like her food if you don't eat anything. And then she tells the story. So when she was 8 years old, her mom had an issue with prescription pills. Anything she could get her hand on. And so she had found her mom in the tub, passed out. She tried to lift her mom out of it, but her mom kept going back down. And some kind of way, I guess she's 8, because she was 8, her mother, like, wound up pulling her in the tub. I guess she was so heavy that she was trying to pull her, and she winds up going in the tub. And she was underwater. Now, thankfully, she had taken out the plug, the drain, before it happened, but it was a lot of water in the tub. And so she was able to breathe, and otherwise she would have died. They never told anybody. It scared the mom so bad, she went into rehab, she got clean, and she's apparently been clean for the past 15 years. The story, however, is getting Lachlan hot, right? Because his thing is, it's the mom's job to protect her. It's not her job to protect the mom, you know? And she tells him she has never told that story to anyone. And she tells him she's good at keeping secrets. And in his mind, he's thinking, what other secrets are she keeping from me? They go back in the water, and this is like a therapy session for her. She just tells him a lot of stuff. We don't know all of the stories that she tells him, but they're from from her childhood. And she felt relief, because it was like the secrets were a burden to her, and it felt like it had been lifted. So then, after that whole reveal, when she gets out, because they stayed in for a long time, she got sunburned. But it didn't feel bad to her, so she didn't realize it was so awful until Miss Porcelli and Lachlan were like, oh my God. Miss Porcelli was like, I have some aloe vera. You got to put that on. Go take a cold shower. So that'll help. And Miss Porcelli also gave Lachlan 2 ibuprofens to give her, because it's going to help with the pain that she's going to feel later. And so he puts the lotion on her. And while he's doing that, she gets a call from her mom. I think her mom's name is Jolie. And so her mom's ringtone is Jolene. And then after we find out what happens on this phone call, it makes sense why she has Jolene as the ringtone. So her mom's like, I've been calling you and calling you. Why haven't you been answering? She's like, something happened. And so she's like, okay, what happened? So her half brother Jared Beckett got killed in a skiing accident. And her mother's telling her, you need to come home. This is family. Your father is going to want to see you now. So all of this shit is because now the one child he's been claiming all these years is dead. Now you want to connect possibly with the child that's still alive. And the fact that the mom says he'll want to meet you, what? I said, okay. So the song Jolene makes perfect sense for this bitch. Perfect sense. But she told her mom, I'm sorry that happened to him. I didn't have a relationship with him. And I don't have one with the sperm donor, you know? And the mom's like, well, you're going to regret this one day. And she says, and if I regret it, it'll be something for me to live with. So she's thinking in her head, at least that'll be her regret instead of her having to live with all the regrets that have happened that weren't her fault. You know what I'm saying? And so she tells him what happened, and he just kind of lets her know. Lachlan's like, you're not wrong for how you feel. And he is not a fan of her mom. And I'm not either. Because she seems like she done did a lot of shit to this girl. And I don't think it just started with, having a drug problem. This seems like, remember, she described her mom loving her father as unrequited love. That means, bitch, you've been chasing. Okay? You've been chasing someone who didn't want you. Just because somebody will fuck you, they still may not want to be with you. Those two things have nothing to do with each other. You know? We fast forward about 2 weeks. It's his birthday. She doesn't know this. So he's going up to his parentals, and he's thought of a lie to tell him when he gets there. So he's going to say that she's sick. Okay? The mom is like, well, if she's sick, why would you leave her? That doesn't put too much, that's not going to have her put too much confidence in you, So he's like, but I left her with Mrs. Porcelli. And her mom's like, that's absolutely ridiculous. She was really looking forward to meeting this woman, okay? So then the dad gets on him too, because see, the dad's the one that's going to have to hear about this shit. Because he's the one that's been hearing about it leading up to today. So it's like, he tells him, you're going to have them meet. You're going to need to schedule a visit for her to come up here and meet your mom. Because she's not going to drive me crazy with this. So then his brother winds up picking up his phone by mistake. And instead of realizing, okay, this is not your phone, he looks through the phone. So he sees all the pictures that they had taken. And Lachlan got so pissed. He was like, really? You just gonna just look at people's stuff? So he got him back. When his wife came over, he told him that, how did he put it? He said, your husband just told me that he wouldn't mind banging my girlfriend if she was available. Like, he said some real stuff, but you know what? You shouldn't have went through his phone. That was not okay. Like, respect people's space. The minute you see, okay, this is not mine, you don't just keep going through it. And then you see their intimate pictures and you just keep going. Like, that's just so rude. He's also been taking like candid photos of her like around the house and stuff. So there's some really sweet ones that he's been able to take of her. And those are the ones that he shows his sisters and his mom. Because, he had to show them, he had to give them something. But I think deep down, he wanted to show her off because he is crazy about the girl. I don't think he knows how to verbalize it. But all of his actions very much go towards you. You really, really like her. The mom, of course, has got him, wants him married, giving her more grandkids. That's her focus. I'm like, these grandparents and this pressure they try to put on people. Look, she's already got grandkids and she still is trying to put pressure. It's amazing. So back at the house, Laura Lynn had dinner with Mrs. Porcelli, and then Miss Porcelli went to her quarters and she decides, you know what, she's going to get a new workout in. So she wants to try a routine on the pole, and when she's done, she sees a figure. And when she turns around, it's a woman. And the woman starts off talking nice to her, saying how wonderful, you know, it was, her performance. And then the daggers start coming, calling her um, a stripper and stuff. And I said that wrong. She said the song was lovely. She didn't say anything about her dancing. Then she starts going on about her being a stripper. And so Laura Lynn is like, okay, who are you? You seem to know who I am, but I have no clue who you are. So the woman says her name is Audrey. And she says that she is his wife. She knows about his game. And she says, I know he just left from, to be with his parents. And all of this stuff is making it appear like, okay, this sounds legit, right? She knew he was going up to the parents. She didn't know it was his birthday, right? But she knew he was going to his parents. And we know the game he likes to play with, not using real names and, strict, parameters and stuff. So this sounds like it's coming from someone legitly. You know what I'm saying? The woman says to her, well, Audrey, because she says her name is Audrey and we know it's her. She says that she just wants her husband back, and if she would just please leave and never contact her husband again so they could work this out, she can maybe, salvage her family. So immediately she goes and she says, I'll leave out first thing in the morning, you know, and the woman leaves. Well, she packs her stuff. She calls Daniel, tells him she needs him to pick her up in the morning. Daniel sounds kind of disappointed because, he knows this is not going to be okay with his boss, but he says, okay. There's not too much else he can say, right? So she turns off the ringer to the booty call phone, and, because Lachlan keeps calling her. Well, then we switch to Lachlan and we find out he left early because his mom had said, you should go back and spend time with her if she's not feeling well. And it's what he wanted, so he left. And he's upset too because he's been calling her, he's not getting the answer. So then when he comes back, he sees her suitcase and he's like, what the fuck is going on? So he goes to the room, she's asleep, but he wakes her up and she jerks back like, why are you here? You weren't supposed to be back until the afternoon. And he's like, why are your bags packed? What's going on? She tells him what happened with Audrey, and then he's forced to tell her. He still didn't tell her like his real name, but he's forced to tell her what's been going on. So Audrey, remember I was trying to figure out, did this just start with Audrey or has this been happening? Come to find out, Audrey's been stalking him for 3 years. So ever since they ended, she's been bothering him. And so since he travels a lot, she's not able to pinpoint him down, you know, too much. But because he's been here the longest, she's been able to kind of map out. She's gotten smarter. She's learned his route. So she's deranged, clearly, right? He tells her about the poisoning of the grapes and and she was also the one behind the fire and all this type of stuff. She's still not buying it, right? So he says, I'll call my mom. So he calls his mom, 3 o'clock in the morning, and he's like, Mom, please tell Laura Lynn I've never been married and I don't have kids. So the mom was like, what is this about? No, you've never been married, you know? And the mom was like, why would someone think you were married? You know, da 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 da. And then she asked Laura Lynn, are you feeling better, dear? And he has to put the phone on mute and tell her, I told her that you weren't feeling well. That's why you didn't come. And so she's like, oh, I'm doing much better. And he tells his mom, thank you so much, X, Y, and Z. And so now she knows he's not married. But again, this is a lot, right? Because you got a crazy person after you. And she done found a way to get into your property. Like, this is a problem. They didn't do anything that night. He just held her. He was just so happy that she didn't leave, you know? So they fell asleep. The next day, he tells her, please say something to me. Don't just leave me. Let us have a conversation. You know, they've got, like, I guess 2 months left. So he's got a business trip that's coming up to New Zealand, and he wants her to come. And she was down for it because she's never been there. And this is exciting. So he gives her money for her to go shopping because she's going to go meet up with Addison today. And they're supposed to have like a girls' day. He sends Daniel with her, remember, because that's the driver. So she gets back to the apartment and she calls up, and Addison says, I'll be done in a few minutes. Come up. And she tries to unlock the door, but it's locked. And she kind of looks at Daniel, and he does say to her, you know he's not going to like this. And she's like, it'll be okay. It's just a few minutes. He says, she's like, I'll be back in 10 minutes. He said, make it 5. If anything happens, you call me. She's like, okay. So she goes up, and guess who answers the door? Ben. So he's like, I'm so sorry, all this type of shit. And she realizes it was a setup because Addison was already ready. But she was like, that's the only way she figured she could get her to come up here so he could apologize. Because apparently he's been sick about what he did for the past 2 weeks. So again, that's what I kept saying. It's her brother. She is going to take the side of her brother. You know what I'm saying? And if he says he's sorry and he didn't mean to do it, she's going to believe it. They go to that 50s diner, have some burgers and fries. She tells Addison what happened with the woman, Audrey, and Addison, just tells her, listen, you enjoy yourself. You got 2 more months. He wants to spoil you and give you the time of your life. Let him do it. So they go to Auckland, New Zealand, and they stop so many times because, again, this is her first visit, so many things to see. It's absolutely stunning. She loves it. So they get to the place. Of course, it's gorgeous. He had thought on the way over here that her birthday's coming up because he remembers her saying that she's a Groundhog Day baby or something like that. So he knows her birthday's tomorrow. So he's like, he's going to go into town and get her some type of gift and surprise her with it the next day. But he tells her while he's out, like, don't go in the ocean without him. It will just make him feel better. Like, it's still an ocean. Things can still happen, especially when you're by yourself. I mean, they can happen when people are there, but I get what he's saying. So he leaves, comes back, and he doesn't see her. He starts calling out throughout the house. He goes outside near the ocean. He's calling her. He's not seeing her. And then all of a sudden, he sees her walking up the side, and he can see his hands are visibly shaking. If you don't love somebody, you're not going to do that. That was pure fear that he felt. So anyway, after that, she had on this red bikini, and later on, they go to dinner, they go dancing. It's not a chill vibe, this club that they went to, that he would like, but Addison was having a ball. She was dancing her ass off. And she told him, back in Nashville, her and Addison go out dancing all the time, And so then this couple comes up to them and asks them their names and stuff like that. And then Laura Lynn has to go to the restroom, and then the woman's like, oh, I gotta go too. And so they leave, and the guy asks Lachlan, like, is that your girlfriend or your wife? And he says, girlfriend. And the guy says, I want to fuck her. And he looked at the dude and he's just like, what did you just say to me? And the dude says, I want to fuck her. And my wife wants to suck you off while she watches. Rage. That's what he felt. And he was like, what? And so all of a sudden, Laura Lynn and Trish come back. That's her name. That was the wife's name. I don't remember the husband's name. Chris. The husband's name was Chris. So Trish walks up and she goes, did you ask him? And he realizes clearly they're swingers. Well, you should have realized that when he said the wife wanted to suck you while she fucked. Like, come on. Yes, they're swingers. So anyway, he winds up punching the guy. And they get, before they can get kicked out the club, they're like, we're leaving. He wouldn't tell freaking Laura Lynn what the guy said. They get back to the house and his hand is like bleeding and stuff. She winds up putting a little soap on there because he didn't have any type of stuff to put on it. And so he tells her what happened, and she just kind of was like, oh, so they were swingers. And he's like, yeah. So she just starts kissing him. She starts jacking him off. And she's like, where are the condoms? He tells her where they are. She gets it. The condoms, by the way, were in his bag. Because remember, he doesn't take anyone out here. So. So anyway, she doesn't just sit on it. She kind of plays with him. And she's like, so you don't want me to fuck anybody? And he's like, no, you're mine. So then after that, they have a nice hard fuck. And throughout the whole fucking session, he's just telling her, like, you're mine, you're no one else's, blah, blah, blah. So the next morning she wakes up and she smells breakfast, but she's tired. But he comes in and gets her. He had a breakfast catered for her. He told her happy birthday. And she's like, I don't remember telling you. She forgot that conversation they had. And he gave her a gift, which was a necklace that was a star with diamonds. And he said it's because when she gets back, she's going to be the biggest star. And it was really sweet, but at the same time heartbreaking to her because it's still keeping where, you know, you're leaving. This has an expiration date. This is gonna end. And I think at this point now they have about 6 more weeks left of this, and then they're done. So he had to go to work, and told her the same thing, just don't go in the water without him. She agrees. She hung out. She did some reading. Later on, she gets a call from her mom saying happy birthday. And then she had good news, her mother said. She had some good news. So the father came to see the mother. And now he wants to meet Laura Lynn. And Laura Lynn was like, I don't need to see him. When I needed him, he wasn't there. And now because the only kid he claimed is dead, now he wants me? And the mom's like, no, it's not like that. She's like, no, it is like that. And I don't want to deal with this. And so then Lachlan comes up behind her, takes the phone, and just says she'll have to call you back, and hangs up and turns off the ringer, and he just holds her. He takes her out to dinner for her birthday. But before they left, her phone was ringing and it was on silent, and he see the name Blake Phillip pop up. And he's kind of wondering, like, who the hell is this? But here's my thing. You don't tell her everything. So she'll tell you when she's comfortable telling you. So anyway, they go out and he tries to fish for information. Like asking her, was she ever in a serious relationship? Does she date a lot back in Nashville? Like all this type of shit. And she just kind of said something like she thought she had something that was real, but turns out it wasn't. And now, of course, and he said, yeah, we all have secrets, right? So then he gives her a cake with 23 candles on it. He tried to make it a really special day for her. And then we find out that wait a minute, how do I say this? She found out, she like lined up the dates when he was saying back about his birthday, that it was like a few weeks back, and she realizes when he was going to his parents, it was his birthday. And at first she was gonna get upset, but then she was like, "No, I'm not even. There's no reason." So they have a routine now. He goes to work. While he's at work, she writes music and stuff. So Blake Phillip is the producer that she was working with on her music. They did songs together. Okay. So she's coming up with new material because it didn't go down too great with the Blake guy. Mrs. Porcelli listens to her, all day while she's doing the new material. And as she's leaving, she tells her how beautiful the song is and that she should tell Mr. McLaughlin she should sing it to him. And so he comes in and he tells her he's taking her to the opera in Sydney. And apparently he got some tickets from a business associate. And just in case that associate comes, he needs to be there. Because, he's not trying to lose any business. So I get that. That makes perfect sense. Now, she says she's not a big fan of that type of music, but she'll go. So they get all dressed up. He also gives her some diamond earrings. And when they get there, someone's taking their picture like crazy. And she's just like, that is weird, So they go inside. They're watching the opera. He tells her what the opera is. Is it Madonna Butterfly or something like that? And they're watching it. Her hands are getting cold, and so he puts a shawl over them, and then he's testing out the theory if she has on underwear or not, and she doesn't, so he winds up fingering her. So then after the opera, they leave out, and they actually left before it ended because they think the people in front of them probably heard what they were doing. So they dipped out a little earlier. They get back in the car. He's got a ton of messages and calls from his family. So he calls his mom first. He doesn't get an answer. He calls his brother Evan, finds out the dad, they think he might have had a heart attack and they've taken him to the hospital. And so she's like, oh my gosh. She's like, I'll get a cabin and go back to the hotel you go. He said, no, I want you with me. And she was like, this means I'm meeting your family. He says, I want you with me. She says, are you sure? Because this is going to change everything. And he says, I know it will, but I want you with me. So they get there. She meets the whole family. The father didn't have a heart attack. However, he was like 90. He had like 90% blockage. And so they did a little procedure. It'll fix it up. He'll be okay. But they are going to keep him until the next day. So then the mom, of course, is like so happy to see her, hugs her, and then asks them, like, where are you guys staying? And he says the name of the hotel, and she's like, no, you need to be with family. You're coming to the house. So he pulled his mom to the side. He's like, Mom, we're only going to be here for another 4 weeks, And the mom says, well, I'm sorry, she's only going to be here for another 4 weeks. And the mom says, well, then you've got 4 weeks to convince her to stay. So they go back to the parental's house. They're staying in the same room. She was kind of like, is this okay? He's like, my mother would not have it any other way. So he keeps trying to play. He's trying to fuck. She's like, no. Because his family's there. She ain't trying to have people hear her screaming. So then he was like, I don't like hearing no. And she said, not every time you hear no is it a bad thing. He's like, really? How so? She says, ask me if I'm pregnant. He looks at her crazy. And she says, ask me if I'm pregnant. He goes, are you pregnant? She says, no. Do you see what I mean? Every no is not a bad thing. He got pissed and started yelling at her. Like, yelled. And he told her, don't you ever play with me like that again. And the way he said it and looked at her, she just got up and went. She thought she was going to the bathroom, but it was the closet, but she just closed the door. And he comes in, he apologizes. I shouldn't have done that, blah, 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 blah. And then he said something to her like he wants her to start calling him, because now she knows his name is Jack Henry, because the mom calls him that. So he's like, enough with the Lachlan stuff. It felt stupid giving her and trying to keep this secret, the fake name, when the girl doesn't want anything from you. She's proven that time and time again that she doesn't, you know? And she knows your name. She doesn't get a reaction because she doesn't know who you are. But again, if her father is a famous country singer, I don't think she's going to care too much about you if she don't care about that. Just saying. They decided they're going to lay it on thick for the mom because they know the mom is, wanting her to stay. So they're going to give her a good show to make her feel good. We fast forward 2 days. The dad's doing good. The family really loves her. She gets along great with everybody. Even the baby that doesn't like anybody likes her. Um, and he's starting to think that this was a mistake to bring her around the family. There were a total, I think they were there for about 3 days in total. And so they head back to Avalon Vineyard and they made it to the kitchen and he just had to fuck her. He's like, it's been too long. She's like, it's been 3 days. That's it. So he's like, that's too long. So he leaves, I guess, is it the same day? It might be the same day. He leaves and she starts playing on the piano. And basically it's a song about who he's going to replace her with right after. And she feels someone watching. And I was like, Lord, please don't let it be that Audrey Ho again. But it's not. It's his mom, Margaret. And she came to see Laurel Lynn. So she basically is like, I know my son is in love with you. Do you love my son? She's like, I do love him. And she says, well, then convince him that it's in his best interest for you to stay. And the mom even was just trying to kind of, give him some cooch. And I'm still going, she been fucking him, It's so that's not the problem. She been giving him that, I don't know. I kind of feel like it's something that he needs to come to her and say he wants it because he knows this is not her norm, right? She's accepting the boundaries that you've put forth. And if those have changed, you need to come to her, I feel. I don't feel she needs to do it because then it kind of makes her seem like the others where you told her what it was and then she couldn't accept it. I think he needs to be the one to say, it's different for me now. I want something different and I want that something different with you. That's just my opinion. All right, we're now down to, she only has a week left in Australia, okay? So he's been coming home early different times to spend time with her. So while she's in the shower, her phone's ringing and it's got that Blake Phillips name again. So he answers it, but he doesn't say anything. And the Blake guy is like, I know you're there. I can hear you breathing. I'm sorry. We can get back what we had before. You need to come back so we can finish the record and the record deal. All this stuff. So then Jack decides to say she's a little preoccupied right now with her Australian boyfriend in Australia. And the Blake guy says, can you please just have her call me back? And he's like, nope, and hangs up. So now Jack is boiling because he wants to know, who is this guy? Does he still mean something to her? Because he had kind of looked through her phone too. I said, now you just went off on somebody about looking through your phone and now you're looking through hers. And she saw a picture of the Blake. He saw a picture of the Blake guy and they were making like a kissy face in the picture. So it's like, this clearly is someone who means something to her, So when she comes out of the shower, he asks her, who is Blake Phillips? She freezes. That freaks him out. Then he says, who is he? And she says he's her record producer. And he says, so you like to kiss on your record producer? Like he's getting really riled up. And she says, we were spending a lot of time together and then we started dating. He said that we couldn't tell anyone, or that it wouldn't be a good idea to tell anyone because it could hurt both their careers. And then she found out the truth was he was married with 3 kids. And he's like, when did this happen? She was like, the beginning of December. He's like, so that was just a few weeks before you came here? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, how long were you together? She said about 3 months. Same amount of time he's been with her. But the only difference is that guy completely lied to her up front, whereas you let her know up front, I'm not going to tell you my name. There's a reason for it, X, Y, and Z. But the way he kind of took it was like, I've done the exact same thing that this guy's done to you. I made you a dirty secret, and you never should have been that. So now he's racked with all kind of guilt, and I laugh because I'm like, that's what you get because you shouldn't have been poking around. And she's telling him, no, you treat me great, amazing, da 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 da, but he's stuck, right? So he gets on his knees. He's like, I'm so sorry. Like, I never wanted to treat you like you were anything less than perfection. He's kissing on her, and he's like, he's never made love to her. It's only been like hard. And so she's like, it's fine, it's fine. So he starts kissing, then they wind up doing the making love thing, but no condom. And he comes inside her. So she tells him, you know, basically like while he's in her, she says to him, I love you, Jack Henry. And before he can say anything, she just pushes him off of her because she doesn't want to hear the rejection. And now she's contemplating just leaving before he tells her to leave. He has to coax her out of the bathroom because she had locked herself in there. She was crying. He was like, when you come out, we can talk. Now he doesn't know what the hell he's gonna say to her. But he's like, they can talk. But when she comes out, they don't talk. They just wind up fucking again. And he had to go back to work, so he was like, don't leave, because he felt like she was gonna bolt. So he's like, don't leave. And she's like, I promise I won't. So he goes to work, and throughout the day he's like sending her messages trying to make sure that she's still there. He's just paranoid at this point. So when he comes home and he calls out for her, she's in the kitchen. Relief floods through him. So she's making lasagna for him, and she had sent Mrs. Porcelli home. Come to find out, lasagna is his favorite, and she didn't even know it. She asks him to go get the wine because he can't cook. So he goes and gets the wine, and when he comes back from the cellar, he sees her upset, and he has a pretty good idea she's on the phone. It's with that Blake guy. And so he snatches the phone from her, and he's like, don't talk to him. Don't let him get you upset. Let us enjoy this time that we have left. They sit down, and he says how he's going to miss her, and he doesn't know what he's going to do with himself. And she just kind of says, you're just going to move on to number 14, because in her mind, you know, that's what he does, right? And he, in his mind, is thinking he doesn't know if he can ever get past number 13. He thinks that the following day, like she leaves the day after tomorrow, but she's actually going to leave this next day. It makes her cry. She wakes up at like 4 in the morning crying. He wakes up. They wind up fucking. Then he leaves for work, and he's like, I have something very special for you when I get home. And she's like, okay. But the way she kisses him is like, it's like, this is it. And he had made a comment to her saying how he was really going to miss her. So in her mind, there's nothing to discuss, right? He's sticking to the original plan. So Jack left work early because he was like, he wanted to see her and tell her he does love her and he wants her to stay. Well, when he gets back to the house, she's gone. She left him a note telling him, I'm going to read it. Let me read the whole note because I thought it was so sweet. And I'm not even going to lie to you guys. I had like water in my eyes. It was so sweet. She writes, my beautiful Jack Henry, This has been coming for 3 months, and I'm no better prepared for it today than I was when we met. If anything, I'm less prepared. I didn't love you the day I met you or even a month later, but somewhere between hello and the goodbye, I'm unable to bear. I feel desperately in love with you. I know you don't feel the same. That's why I told you I was leaving tomorrow instead of today. I couldn't bear to say goodbye and see how little you were affected by watching me walk out of your life forever. Because it is forever. I promised I wouldn't contact you, and I won't because it's what you asked. You kept your promise to me. This has been the best 3 months of my life, and I'll never be able to top it. You made my every fantasy come true, and that includes finding the love of my life. Now it's my turn to keep my promise. I love you, Jack Henry, with every fiber of my being, forever. Laurel Lynn, your American Girl. How effing sweet! Ah! It's just so selfless and just, oh, it was just so beautiful to me. He starts screaming, no, 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 because guess what? He was coming home to tell her he wanted her to stay. But he shouldn't have, I just feel like you shouldn't chance it. I feel like he should have said that to her after she told him she loved him. He should have said it that night or that morning, but he should have said it. But waited until all the way until you get like, oh. So anyway, now he's rushing to the Wagga Wagga airport to see if there's any flights from Wagga Wagga to, or is it Wagga Wagga? I don't know. I like Wagga Wagga, so I'm gonna call it that. From there to Sydney, all of the flights have left for the day. There's one more flight that's leaving from Sydney to LAX, and it leaves out at 3, but he has no way of getting there on time. So he's desperate. He doesn't have her real phone number, remember. She doesn't have the booty call phone anymore. She left that at his house. So he goes to Ben's apartment. And of course, Ben doesn't give him any information. Ben says, well, if you all had an arrangement, then you need to respect it. Because clearly she is. So no help from there. And he's wrecked. He is really wrecked. And he just kind of slams the door to the car because it's like, what the fuck now? So Addison is trying to wake up Laurel Lynn because she's crying in her sleep, like a horrible cry. And Addison's like, I know it's about, she still knows of him as Lachlan. And she was like, if I thought you would have fell for him, I wouldn't have pushed you to do it. And we find out she's broken because she's in love with Zach. But Laurel Lynn is just not in the capacity to talk about Addison shit. She just wants to try and forget because really it was a beautiful experience, but unfortunately it came with pain, and thus that's how which makes sense of why the book is called, you know, beauty, beauty from pain. Makes perfect sense. And so that's how it ends. And then next week we're going to jump into book 2, which is called Beauty from Surrender. I love this. I really like this. It's kind of long. You see, I had to split it up into 2 videos. But it's worth it. It's so good. Let me know what you guys think. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. I really don't like that mother. And clearly we're going to get more of her because she's going back to Nashville. I don't like that mom. It's a clear sign of a mother that had a kid just to try and get this guy, and she still didn't get him. But she's still using her as if she can get him one day. Drop down in the description section, comment section, I'm sorry, and let me know what you guys think. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. And as always, I truly do thank you all for your support, and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.